Alpha Phi Alpha's Sphinx Talk with Brother Eric Christopher Webb is sponsored by Good Health Wins. For more content, subscribe now.
Welcome to Sphinx Talk. I'm your host, Brother Eric Christopher Webb, and for today's episode, we're going to keep it all hip-hop, literally allhiphop.com. I've got the founder of co-founder of allhiphop.com, Brother Chuck Creekmur, a.k.a. Jigsaw. Chuck, what's going on, baby?
I'm glad to be here, brother. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure, man. So, for those that don't know, Chuck and I go way back. We go way back to our college days, so it's always good to have brothers from the soil on this show and the brothers that are doing big things in the industry. And he is a big name in the hip-hop industry. He is the storyteller, telling the narrative of all hip-hop, and all hip-hop, literally all hip-hop. The last issue of the Sphinx magazine, I had Brother Chuck Creekmur write the anniversary piece on the 50th anniversary of hip hop. And so he recounted a lot of things and he celebrated Alpha's role in the hip hop industry. So Chuck, let's talk about that. Alpha's role in the hip hop industry.
Yeah, man. You know, writing that article was almost like reliving it all, the earliest days for me personally. And then you helped me flesh out some of the things that I had forgotten. But yeah, Alpha has definitely been quietly and sometimes not so quietly, pushing the culture forward. You have brothers like Do It All from Lords of the Underground, Benny Boom, and then they're more prominent, but then you have other folks like P. Frank Williams, a noted director, Jerry Barrow, and who's a journalist, and many others too. So we're out here and really shaping and molding the culture, putting the fire underneath people when it needs to be that way, and in other instances, just helping people in general. So
let's talk a little bit about how you got your company started, your journey a little bit, about how your company got started, and then let's start with Alpha first, right?
Yeah.
Your journey into Alpha.
Yeah, I went over fall 1993. I'm a solo Xi Omicron chapter at the University of Delaware. University of Delaware was a great place for me because for one, I was able to indulge in everything that the campus had to offer. The black community at UD was extremely tight, they were close, and the brothers on the campus were leaders. And that was the one thing I noticed first of all, is that the Xi Omicron brothers were leaders. And oftentimes I would find out that they were leaders find out they were alphas after seeing them in these leadership positions. So I gravitated to them in a lot of ways before I even knew they were alphas. And so upon entering, I felt it was my duty to obviously represent and also be authentically myself too, which is what Alpha allowed me to be. Yeah.
Right. So how did allhiphop.com get started? I know you have a partner, business
Grouchy
partner.
Greg Watkins, yep. Yeah, Grouchy Greg's been my business partner for the whole 25 years that we've done our thing. How did I get started with it's interesting, man. It's almost like a gumbo of circumstance. I was working at a bank. I had went to college to do all of this, all this stuff regarding, related to hip hop. And when I graduated, I saw the starting salary of a reporter, and I was I'm good.
We all knew that. Definitely.
So, but I didn't stop and I didn't quit, and that's kind of where Alpha comes in as well. Invictus, I had it on my desk, and I read it. I had it in my wallet. I had it everywhere. the poem, and so as time went on, I just kept grinding and grinding and grinding without starting the company. Eventually, I started a website that was a whole different name and everything, and Greg was running technically all hip hop prior to our partnership.
Right.
And then one day we were just like, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing almost the same thing or very similar things online? We should just partner up. And it started right there. And the moment we partnered up, it was like the big bang. Everything changed for me and him, and we haven't looked back.
So you guys have been doing this for
25 years, going into 26, yeah.
Right. So what has been, I guess, your biggest story for all hip hop?
Biggest story? Man, there's so many. I mean, one would be one gentleman, I don't know if he's a gentleman, but Dexter Isaac confessed to shooting Tupac in the elevator at Quad Studios.
Wow.
You know, it's a very infamous moment according to him, at the orders of Jimmy Henchman, who's a notorious figure in New York and hip hop.
Right.
That was really serious, believe it or not. It was a very serious case, and Jimmy Henchman was outside at that point. He was a free man.
He's a free man, right?
Yeah, he was a free man.
Right.
So, understanding that, also almost everything surrounding Jam Master Jay, the unfortunate situation with Jam Master Jay being murdered from Run DMC. For those that don't know, Run DMC is probably, in my mind, the biggest group ever in hip hop. Although through time, maybe we could say other groups.
No, but they were the first hip hop group to fill a stadium, right?
Yeah.
They were doing arenas. It was no more nightclubs or small venues.
Yeah.
They brought hip hop to stadiums.
Absolutely, and they crossed over, truly. So, and then there's others that are more friendly, like hanging out with DMX, hanging out with Jay-Z, interviewing Nas for 3 hours, like things like that, which aren't exactly breaking news.
Right.
For me, are experiences I'll never forget.
So you've interviewed all these guys. You've interviewed probably all of the major figures.
Yeah,
now
most of
the major figures. Is there any one person that you never got to interview that may be gone or is out there that you still haven't interviewed?
I've never interviewed Eminem.
Really?
Never interviewed Eminem, yeah. That's the one guy. And I've never truly interviewed Dr. Dre. I've met Dr. Dre, but I've never interviewed either one of them in a sit-down interview. So I'm trying to get that done.
Eminem, Dre, you hear him, right?
By the way, I was hanging out with you and your brothers at New with my best friend at the time, Chris Brown, Gamma Sigma.
Right.
Said, man, I'm going to Philly. I'm going to meet Eminem. And I was like, we were both at Lincoln, and I said, nah, I'm going to stay here. And he went and he met Eminem. And
that could have been a connect right
that
there.
could have been, yeah, definitely.
Wow,
Yep.
wow. So what do you think about the state of hip-hop today?
I think it's healthy, man. I think the state of hip hop is good. I think it's there's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of things to be unhappy about. But if you're looking for a certain type of hip hop, I think that you can find it. It may take some work on your part, which I think we used to do naturally. If you want to focus on the negative, that's what you're going to see mostly. My main concern with hip hop now is that not enough of us, not enough people from the soil, as you put it, are involved in the culture from a business perspective.
Okay.
So many of us want to be rappers, so many of us want to be artists, but not enough of us want to be the executive or the business person or the person that promotes the...
Well, you would think, like, Russell Simmons kind of changed a little bit of that with, Russell and Run DMC, they kind of changed that, because they were the first to kind of put, when they realized that they were referencing Adidas and making money for Adidas and everybody else, and then next thing you know, Russell's like, okay, we need to have Fat Farm and we need to do these other things. So,
well, think about it. Russell Simmons, his day was 25 years, let's say 25.
Right.
To be nice, but really it was before that. It was longer than that. And that 90s era was the mogul era. That was the period of time where They didn't know our culture. They were figuring it out, and they needed one of us to usher in to their company, their house, oftentimes, our culture. And then they were able to properly market it, manage it, almost even sometimes guide it. You know what I mean? Because remember, the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of conscious hip hop was coming out at that time. By the late 90s, not so much. A lot of the, more street, gangster rap became more prominent.
Do you think there's a chance for, I can't say conscious rap, I mean, I think that era is gone, right?
It's not
But
gone.
Is it, are we going to see more rappers
I think so.
that are touching on real subjects?
Yeah, I think so. I just interviewed an artist named AJ McQueen.
Okay.
I met him years ago. I'm tapped into other artists like Coda the Friend, like D Smoke, D1. There's a whole community of very conscious and also talented artists as well. I think what conscious artists have to remember, it's music. So it has to be enjoyable to hear.
Right.
Your beats have to be tight.
And that's usually the issue. You got banging lyrics, but you've got horrible production.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Not all the time, and sometimes you just want to turn up. Like, you don't necessarily want to hear
Being preached to.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And if you think about the artists that we grew up on, most of them knew that balance. KRS-One, he knew that balance.
Right.
Chuck D, Flavor Flav, Public Enemy, they knew that balance. They all understood that there's a kinship with common people and the conscious community.
Right.
And where's the balance?
Right. So we talk about conscious rappers or rappers doing different things in the state of hip hop. I'm going to say two names. Drake,
Okay.
Kendrick Lamar.
Okay.
How do you feel about that?
I'm gonna throw J. Cole in there with you on his behalf, although he has departed the battle. But I mentioned those three because to me they represent the finest hip hop has to offer. Now I could also throw a couple other artists in there, but I say those three because Drake is pop, Kendrick is conscious and thought-provoking and theater-like, and then there's J. Cole to me, who's hip hop. He's what he would call the middle child. He's the guy that's going to bar it up. He's going to spit bars. Drake is going to give you the flavor and the swag, or whatever you want to call it. He's going to hit the charts heavy. And Kendrick's a little bit of everything, but for the most part, he gives you that consciousness or that thought-provoking lyric or those things that might help you through life. And so as it relates to the battle, if you want to talk about that,
let's go there. As
it relates to the battle,
AI.
I'm just here for it, right? I don't have a team. I don't have a dog in this fight. It's not quite to me like Jay and Nas or something like that.
Right.
I just want to see lyrics, right? So I'm actually hype over the Drake situation, at least the first song, because he got on there, he had a little bop, he's spitting his bars, he called Kendrick a pipsqueak. I was like, oh shoot, and then he doubled up with the AI. Now, the AI it's a little different, right?
Okay.
It's different.
Okay.
How I feel about it, I have mixed feelings.
Some people saying it's disrespectful.
Some say it's disrespectful. So when you think about Tupac, how he died even, the fact that he's not here, then you put him in a beef, it could be insensitive.
Right.
On the other side, with the way the culture is now, and there's a lot of use of AI, to me it could have been something he waited on. Maybe he could have got permission. Maybe he could have just waited for Kendrick to reply to do that. Because to me, it's kind of ingenious. I would have never thought of it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So is this good for hip hop?
It's great for hip hop. Man, you know how many people I've had come to me and say, I love this. I'm interested again. I want to see this happen. And that's when you're not selfish, you will battle, right? Because if because it's all about competition. It's all about who's the best. It's always been about that. And it's not about violence. People who say that it's going to lead to violence or it's about violence are projecting something that's happened in the past. It's a different time, and with some artists, it could go that way. With these artists, I don't believe it could.
Right. So, I mean, we think about some of the classic battles. We kind of run through some of them. Hell, we can just say KRS won.
Yeah.
And that's how many people,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, he's got innumerable battles, obviously, with, his get down. I mean, from what I understand, KRS has a notebook with 2 lines in each page of it. And those 2 lines represent a whole verse for every rapper in the game. He only needs to see the first 2 to activate that lyric for all the top rappers.
Really?
Yeah. So he's different. He's different. He's a beast.
Right. So, I mean, what do you think is the most classic hip hop battle?
I'm gonna go with, for me personally, it's Jay-Z and Nas.
Okay.
Yeah, Jay-Z and Nas, when they battled, people really have a revisionist look at it, but there was a lot of tension leading up to when Jay-Z took the stage at Hot 97 and did a part of the Takeover verse. Like, I remember this vividly because we had covered the culture every step of the way, from a work perspective and from a fan perspective.
Okay.
So it was already heating up. And then for it to go that way, and then for Nas to come back with Ether.
Yeah.
And then ultimately for them to become brothers in business and piece it up was very important for the culture as well.
And that was changing if let's say Pac and Big could have mended those fences before it led to tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were friends.
They started out as friends.
They started out as friends, man. But the unfortunate reality is when everyone else gets involved, not going to say any names, but a lot of others were involved, and it just turns into something else. And I think Pac had, I'm not going to say what I really think, but I think that there was a lot of confusion and a lot of misunderstanding and a lack of communication.
Well, we can look at the parallels with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, right?
Absolutely.
And just people trying to incite the divisions, or Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad or whatnot. Every time we have black leaders. Now, I'm not going to elevate hip-hop artists to black leaders, though there are some that have leadership qualities and could be, prophetic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Offer a prophetic message.
Sage wisdom.
Right, and offer wisdom and actually motivate folks to do different things. So, we're in a state right now, we talk about prophetic wisdom, we're in a situation in our culture right now, in our time, where these are volatile times with our civil rights, voting rights, things are being rolled back. What do you think? Do you think hip hop is going to have a real role again and try to really have a true role in this?
The short answer is yes. The long answer is it's complicated. And I say that because hip-hop artists are already being used. The Biden administration recently hosted an event, and Glorilla was there.
They've had Fat Joe.
There. Right. The others, the Trumps of the world have used Sexy Red and Kanye West. RFK, Robert F. Kennedy, has used a number of artists as well. I think there's a disconnect, however. How effective are they in promoting an agenda that we agree on as a people? And that's where I think the problem is I think that they're paying people, they're cutting checks, and I don't believe that there's an incentive for artists to be articulate anymore. So if you saw Glorilla get on CNN, did you see that?
No, I didn't. Actually, I missed it.
Extremely, extremely sad, and I will say shouldn't have ever been in that position. And shame on CNN, to be honest with you, for doing that, because there were other people at that event.
I mean, well, it's almost like the the extra. It's almost like when back in the day you hear the news and they would blow past the most articulate black person that's standing in front of them to find the black person with no teeth in their mouth, a do-rag on their head, and ask them for a commentary.
Yeah, definitely. So will the artists begin to do it? I think so. But so what we have to understand, I think, is where are we now, right? Where are we now? Is there an upside for an artist to speak out? Will people back them when they get put in that line of fire, which ultimately will happen? It's happened to a number of artists. I would say Meek Mill is one who has paid a price for being sort of on the front lines of speaking out. Mm-hmm. I think Lil Baby, rapper from Atlanta, spoke out for like a quick second and was not able to fully, he lyrically was really dope.
Right.
But when it came to talking about it, he wasn't really able to articulate it.
Right.
So we have to remember at all times, hip hop is a reflection of what's going on now. So when we're talking about Chuck D of Public Enemy or KRS-One, X-Clan, and all those artists, even the ones that weren't so conscious, they were still echoing someone. They were coming out of the civil rights era. We still were quoting Martin, quoting Malcolm.
Right.
Minister Farrakhan, and others who were close and within our community.
But also these rappers also came out of the 5%er nation, right? They were 5%ers. So they automatically were already politicized.
Absolutely.
And had a level of consciousness or whatnot that they were going to bring.
And they brought that in their rhymes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, clearly, man. I mean, Big Daddy Kane is one. Rakim is another. There are innumerable artists that are impacted by the people in the community, and then they rap about what's in the community.
Right. I mean, Killer Mike.
Yeah, Killer Mike. I mean, and if you look at my history with Killer Mike, I mean, we go back 20 years.
Really?
You know, yeah, Killer Mike, that's my dude. He still responds to my text messages.
Wow.
Which is always funny when I say that, but no, he's a real one. He's a very thoughtful guy, not without his own controversies.
Right.
But at the end of the day, a thoughtful person. You know, so he's someone who I respect, and I've hosted conversations with him on stage next to intellectuals like Michael Eric Dyson or something like that.
Right. He's really thoughtful.
Yeah.
David Banner.
He's another one. I was just with David Banner in Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah, and we were on a panel together with Angela Yee and Dr. Ben Chavis, another leader who we love and respect. And we sat in front of about 3,000, I don't know, maybe not 3,000, but a large convention from John Hope Bryant.
Okay.
And it was great, man.
And I was
David
just
Banner's a brilliant.
I was just with Ben Chavis.
Really?
Last night.
Really?
Last night in Baltimore at the Reginald Lewis. It was the 70th anniversary of Brown versus Board with Thurgood Marshall, and I spoke at that panel or whatnot. It was a panel, and I brought greetings and whatnot. So Dr. Ben Chavis was there. Yeah.
But I feel like the black leadership has to step up. And that's where I think our real problem is. We need better leaders, more accountability from the community. I think we've gotten to a place where artists are allowed to do anything.
Okay.
And if you say anything, you're hating. If you oppose anything, you're a hater. And I think that that's the wrong way of looking at it when we're talking about our people. Now, if you're talking about something frivolous, then okay, you can be a hater about that. But if you're talking about the upliftment of black people, or if you're talking about what's best for young people, then I think that we have to have a different standard.
So you, like I said, you've been chronicling hip hop for 25 years or whatnot, and what a lot of people don't realize is that you don't just write or you don't just write for your website. You've written for other publications and things of that nature. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's funny, in the write-up in the Sphinx magazine, I referenced my brother P. Frank Williams.
Right.
So prior to moving to New York, the hardest was getting in the industry. So you would send all your articles to the Source or Vibe or whatever, and hope that they would reply and say you could write for us. Well, I couldn't I couldn't get anybody to listen to me. I was a great writer. I had been trained well, I mean, you know, who am I to say I'm a great writer? But I was a solid writer who knew I had the skills to write.
Right.
Because I had followed all these great people. Shout out to brother Kevin Powell, who was one of the people I looked up to as a journalist. And so at the end of the day, I got in touch with brother P. Frank Williams, and I had already known a couple other brothers. P. Frank Williams, Positive Frank Williams, gave me my very first assignment for the Source magazine.
Really?
So, yeah. So that was my gateway, so to speak, into the game. I should also refer to Smokey Fontaine, who actually, I should back up a minute. I don't want to be too long-winded here.
No, we're fine.
But
we're fine.
I want to make the connection. Smokey Fontaine was also a journalist too. Is a journalist. Heads up Apple's editorial side, and he started a company called Volume.com, which Jerry Barrow was at, brother Jerry Barrow, and me as well. And so that's kind of the very first start, and then P. Frank. So I've written for a number of publications. The Source, Vibe, and many others really, but those are the big two for me.
Now we talked about the stories that you were most proud of, and what's next though for you, brother? I mean, or with allhiphop.com, what's next, or what's next as far as you as an entrepreneur? What's next?
Great question. Well, I'm looking to take my personal brand to new heights. You know, I've poured very hard into all hip hop. I poured my soul into it, really.
Right.
And oftentimes when you do that, you lose a piece of yourself. And so I'm looking to hopefully get a talk show of some sort. I'm working on that, by the way, with a producer. And I'm also looking to start some other businesses outside of All Hip Hop. All Hip Hop is, as an entity, is really looking forward to the next 25 years. We're launching All Hip Hop TV and All Hip Hop Radio. And understanding the dynamic of our culture is ownership, you know, and that goes back to the mogul era, which we came up in, being a boss, a real boss. And ownership is going to be the most critical component in hip hop going forward, as far as seeing and enjoying the culture. The second component will be technology, and whether or not we as a culture and as a people are able to keep up with the changes that are rapidly occurring in technology. And then last will be culture. I think that if we're going to continue to shape and mold our own culture, those other two components have to be in place, because others are shaping our culture now.
Now, what about books, brother?
Yeah,
what about a book from you?
I have been working on a book for the longest time. Maybe you can help me get it done.
We can do
maybe
it.
we should definitely talk.
Maybe collaborate.
I have been working on a book for years. It's deeply personal. Now I'm backing off of that and trying to think about another book. So we should definitely have that conversation, since you are a published author.
Well, yes, I am. Yes, I am. 5.
Absolutely.
You got 5. I got 5.
5?
I've had 5
books?
man. Yeah. 5.
Oh,
3 of them, National Black Author Store bestsellers.
Hey,
yeah,
man, let's work together. You can help me be better than I am right now. You can help me be my higher self.
So what about a documentary? What about a allhiphop.com documentary? Where you guys at on that?
Oh man, last year we announced our documentary, and at the same time Hollywood went haywire. So we are hopefully going to still get it done. I'm not exactly sure where we stand, but I do know this: it's going to get done.
So do you have a production deal on that, or on the table?
Yes.
Who's that with? If you can talk about it.
I'd rather not say right now, because hey, we don't know how that will pan out. Yeah.
Okay.
But and then we're in talks to have a TV series, an all hip hop TV series. Not a nonfiction account, which in a perfect world I do want that.
Okay.
In the spirit of Entourage, but it'll be more of us storytelling.
Okay. When might we see that?
I think that can happen very soon.
Really?
Yeah. They've informed me that could vamp up very soon.
Now, when you say a TV series, are we talking You know, you have your characters. You said
No, so it'll be more like this happened, like you mentioned earlier, like Jam Master Jay, and this is what happened, and this is where we were, and this is why, things went the way they went. Or it might be someone's legal situation or things of that nature. So it would be something more rooted in news stories and storytelling.
Now tell me this. I mean, I'm always interested in what kind of gems or stories, a story can you share that you didn't write about, that you didn't write about, that is one of those interesting stories about a hip hop artist, just an interaction, something crazy that happened
That I didn't write about.
that you didn't write about.
Well, name an artist.
That's DMX.
Oh, DMX. Oh, man. Okay. Well, DMX. The last time I hung out with DMX, which was not long before he passed, well, it might have been a couple years, I think. It was wild. First of all, I had to buy him Hennessy. That was the first time I ever had to buy artist Hennessy. Not the first, but it was the first time he said, "I won't do this interview unless you buy me Hennessy." So he was a wild guy that day. I never wrote about that, and so I spent the day with him. Yeah, I spent the day with DMX. It was beautiful, man. I have pictures of him with kids. I've never published. I have a story to tell about a young journalist who so DMX, God rest him, rest his spirit. He was known to steal. He was known,
Right. Well, that's how he met his wife. Stole his wife's purse, right?
Right. Yes.
Right.
So it's no mystery. It's not a secret. He was known to steal. So there's a young journalist who shall remain nameless, but I do have the video evidence, by the way, and he's very prominent now. So he had a book, Def Jam 25, I think. It's a very big coffee table style book, which it's a beautiful book. And I have the book, he happened to have every page signed from every Def Jam artist, basically. And he wanted DMX to sign it. And DMX signed it and then took it. And just left the building. By this time, we were at MTV, which gives you a clue of who it could have been. But
wow.
And then he left the building. But there's a good side.
You get it back?
I was with Dame Grease. I don't think Swiss Beats was there. I think it was Dame Grease. Don't get me started. My homegirl Gina was there. She worked for All Hip Hop too, and she had also interviewed him with me. And he brought it back. Long story short, for the first time in history, I witnessed DMX stealing something
and returning it.
Never been done before. And he said that, I'm pretty sure I have that on tape. He said it's the first time. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How about LL?
I saw LL at the Grammys. I see LL a lot. I've interviewed LL several times.
He's probably got the most longevity of any hip hop artist.
Yeah, he's a true legend, and he's a real true ambassador for hip hop now. I really respect L in that way. He's really done amazing things. But I saw him at the Rock the Bells Festival, and he was like, man, whatever you need to celebrate your anniversary. He did a fashion show with us once. It's all love, man. And L to me is the guy we all idolize, man. We all wanted to be LL.
Method Man.
Yeah, Method Man is one of those guys that was around for the first time, first beginnings of all hip hop. He softened up a lot with regard to his hate for the press. He used to hate the press, man.
Really?
He used to hate.
Well, he talks about how he used to be hostile in general.
Yeah,
just like
true.
He was,
But here's a story. Brother Chris Brown from Grueling Gamma Sigma and I drove about 5 hours to interview Redman and Method Man. We drove. Listen, this is how hard we used to go. 5 hours for an interview. It was really Redman we were interviewing, but Meth was there. And we did the whole thing all day thing, and then at the end of the night when it was time to do the interview, they were so popular that the crowd was out of control. So I'm in a car and they're my little Ford Escort,
Uh-huh.
and they're in a van, and the fans they're following the van. It's totally not safe.
Right, right.
So we lost them, and they peel out. They're just doing whatever it takes to get away from the fans. So meth. This is turning into a Redman story.
Okay.
Because I was there for Redman, but I do have a meth, but I can't say this
On there,
on the
I'm
end.
sure.
But I'll tell you this. All right, so I'm gonna get back to my Redman story. Then I'm gonna end with meth. We ended up just almost to the point of giving up. Me and Chris, and we're sitting in the hotel lobby where we know Red is at, and he walks in like 1 a.m. or something crazy. We were just about to call it a day because we were going right home.
Right, right.
And I jumped up. I was like, yo, I was tight by that time. And I was like, oh yeah, well, my bad. It's still Redman. Calm down, buddy. But as far as meth, I interviewed Meth. Actually, you know what? I'll say it. I won't give the details.
Okay.
But I interviewed Meth in the Wu-Tang studio after he had a big falling out with his wife when Wendy Williams was running her mouth.
Right.
And Meth was in a low space, and that's an interview that I never released. We never have released it because it was too personal. It was a lot, and it was on camera, so we never released it.
Right. Well, and you're showing some accountability and just being accountable as a journalist first of all, and actually having some empathy.
Yeah, I could. If it was a write-up, it might have been a little different. Then you can frame it differently because this was literally for all hip hop, and I just didn't feel that. We've done that a few times. DMX, I could pretty much say this. He was very high one interview.
Yeah, I can imagine.
He just nodded off in the middle of our interview, and we just never released it. It was just like, that's not good. Not good for him. Not good for us. Not good for the culture.
And I think a lot of these journalists out there now, so-called hip-hop journalists out there now, would have released that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They would have released it for the clicks. They would have released it for the viral possibility.
Without hesitation.
Before
the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah, no question.
So what advice would you give to young brothers and sisters trying to follow in your footsteps?
Okay. Well, first of all, I would say pretty much don't follow in my footsteps. Figure out and in a way learn from me.
Okay.
Right? Learn from me, but find a pathway that is forward thinking, that is putting think 10 years in the future. It's almost like the Wayne Gretzky quote, like, where's the puck going to end up? Because the way technology is now, if you're thinking about right now, in a year, in 6 months, in tomorrow, it's going to change. So you've got to think forward thinking. It might be a longer process if you're in business or if you're independent. It might be a longer process. But I would encourage people to educate themselves always, learn about all the business people, learn about all the people in technology, whether it's a Steve Jobs or a Chuck Creekmur. Learn about the people who are before you and take bits and pieces, because that's all I did. I learned from Earl Graves, rest his soul. I learned from...
Go figure, an alpha learning from a Q.
Yeah, first time in history.
I'm joking.
Nah. But he wrote a book, and I read it, and I learned so much from that book. Steve Jobs, not just black people, Russell Simmons' story.
Right.
I learned from, I read a lot of books. A lot of people like the internet space, but I prefer books. And so I just would encourage any young person to study the landscape, understand what it takes. All hip hop's not 25 years old because, we just jumped into it. We were thoroughly educated, not only from a collegiate standpoint, but also from a street standpoint.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We weren't just the nerds in the house, in the basement. We were also outside, and we were talking to people, shaking hands. And we also studied the greats, all the greats, musically, technologically, culturally, and what makes them work. What makes Malcolm X a great leader? What makes Kevin Powell, why is he famous versus another writer? Why is he successful versus another writer?
Right.
And so I studied almost all of them. Smokey Fontaine, I was following him before I knew he was an alpha. I was following him from his days at Trace magazine, you know. So I studied everyone that I could see, basically. So I encourage everyone, and understand that education never ends. That's one thing I think people need to understand. You're always becoming educated. And now that's where my company is now. Educating ourselves, re-educating ourselves, knowing the landscape where you spit in it. And lastly, by the way, there's a book about blue oceans. I forget the name of it, but the premise is blue oceans versus red oceans. And the idea is that a blue ocean is there's nothing there. It's just peace and quiet.
Okay.
The red ocean has a piece of meat in it, and sharks are fighting. All the sharks are fighting for this one piece of meat. You want to be in the blue ocean. And that's what all hip hop was for 10 years. We were in a blue ocean, no competition, no one could mess with us.
And so you can just grow.
And then you can grow, you can make mistakes, you can, people come to you, all the things. Now the internet is a red ocean. Now we're good because we've been around for so long.
And you have the credibility.
Right. But if you try to jump in that red ocean now, it's going to be real hard. So I would encourage people to study where's there with the least resistance to your ideas and your thoughts. I mean, you could literally apply this concept into something else. So if you want to do Catholic hip hop or, some version of it, or
Christian hip hop.
Christian hip hop even. I mean, even though that's very competitive too now.
Right.
So
Well, before I close, I've been meaning to ask you, and I can't even remember, and maybe I knew, maybe I know, but it's been some years. Jigsaw. How'd you get the name Jigsaw?
Shout out to Phil Ward, aka Black Steel in the Hour, Chaos, Fall '89, Omicron.
Yes, Phil.
He passed away. Shout out to
indeed.
Phil.
That was my guy.
Yeah, Phil. I can give you two versions of it. Do you want the there's two versions. I'm gonna give you the first version. I was hard to understand. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, Chuck, it has been a pleasure and
Thank
indeed
you.
an honor to have one of my brothers from the soil.
Yes. Yeah, and
somebody
likewise.
I came up with on this show, and so definitely.
My brother, I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother.
Respect.
This has been another episode of Sphinx Talk. I'm your host, Brother Eric Christopher Webb. We're out. 06.
06.
Thank you for watching Sphinx TV. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe now for more content from the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha. 06.